All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the 2016 Pyromaniac.com fantasy football debate. My name is OC. I will be your moderator this awesome evening. So I will give each candidate the opportunity to express their opening remarks and then I'll get to the real issues at hand. At first, I will go with Mo. Say hello to the people, Mr. Mozambique.
Hello, America. I am PyromaniacMo, and I want your support for fantasy football. Together, we shall build a better tomorrow. Through stats, not through angry rhetoric. Through analysis, not speculation. Through the use of metrics and not the use of negative attacks, shall we rise to the top of fantasy prominence together. Folks, we've seen from the opposition an unwillingness to learn and unwillingness to come across party lines and work together. We need the NFC and the AFC together in this one. That is a recipe for success, and that is a recipe my campaign is cooking with. As Abraham Lincoln once said, I like to think I am smarter today than I was yesterday. So in that spirit of knowledge, in that spirit of striving for fantasy goo, I will always analyze the data. I will always scour the airwaves, listening to all podcasts, listening to all opinions, so that mine is an informed decision built on knowledge. I am the city on the hill, a shining beacon in a cold fantasy world, and I hope I can get your support come November. Thank you, and let's make this America fantasy come true together, for I am a candidate that says no to demagoguery and yes to America, yes to fantasy. A vote for PyromaniacMo is a vote for America. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mozambique. How about we start with that water up there first? But let's go to our owner and founder of Pyromaniac.com, our second candidate, and the Donald Trump wannabe, Mr. D. Rex. Say hello to the people, Mr. D.
Well, hello, American people. We're gathered here today to talk about this thing called life. I'm here to tell you that I am the candidate for the future of this fantasy America. And there are many reasons and many platforms that I am running this on. And I'm just going to tell you that you will know all of those after the election. You will know all the people that I will be putting into my cabinet after I am voted into the big house. I will tell you one thing. We will be changing the name of our plane from Air Force One to Air Force Fun. And it starts here today, people. It is Sunday, and it is a Sunday fun day. And it is a Valverde moment. I don't care. It says Guinness. That's Ireland. We're going to bomb Ireland. So why do I have something from Ireland on my glass? God damn it. Who did this? Fire him. You're fired. So I'm really excited to be here with the man with the small hands. Foot size is a little small too. I don't know how big his hat size is, but I don't think it's very big. And we are going to talk fantasy football. And I'm going to tell you right now, we live in America, we die in America, and everyone else just dies.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Trump. D-Rex. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Mozambique, you have mentioned that Marcus Mariota can be a top 10 quarterback by season's end. Plus, you'll be able to draft him as a backup quarterback late in the drafts. So are you forgetting that he plays on Tennessee? Or can you expand on this Marcus Mariota love?
Well, let me tell you, I have a dream. I have a dream of a new day when my children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream of a new day where my fantasy quarterback will be judged not by their passing attempts, but on the content of his efficiency. I have a dream of a day that I shall achieve fantasy glory, a day when a Marcus Mariota will rise to prominence with the new weapons around him. He could be this year's Carson Palmer, a player drafted at the end that has a potential to land you in the top 10. Mr. Marcus Mariota is a man of the people, a man for the people, and a man by the people. I have a dream that next year Mr. Marcus Mariota will bring his owners to the promised land. He can be the beacon for all drafters, like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the spiritual Trinity. A Marcus Mariota can pass the ball into the end zone. A Mr. Marcus Mariota can run the ball into the end zone. And a Mr. Marcus Mariota can catch passes in the end zone. The Holy Trinity, a rushing and a passing and a catching. I see a glory for the Tennessee Titans. It's a coming, and it's a Mr. Marcus Mariota that is at the helm, steering the Titan ship past adversity, past the Texans of Houston, going around the Colts of Indianapolis, through the Jaguars of Jacksonville. Oh, yes, I see the goal line ahead of us all. We shall get there together. We shall be a great getting over the end zone, a great getting over into adversity, and a great getting over your opponents on fantasy day, a great getting over to that championship. It is the Titans who have given him the weapons to achieve fantasy glory. Mr. Marcus Mariota will use all these weapons the good coach Malarkey has bestowed upon him. Mr. Marcus Mariota will pass to people of all creeds and all colors, white receivers and black receivers, tall players and short players. The fast and the quick alike will catch touchdowns in Tennessee next season. Oh, yes, I see the coming of a new day. The Titans will force defenses to play honestly with the addition of a Mr. DeMarco Murray. I see Dorial Green Beckham taking the baton in stride. I see a return of Mr. Kendall Wright, who, may I remind voters, is just 2 years removed from 94 receptions in a 1,000-yard season. Let us not forget the addition of Mr. Mashard Matthews, who was one of a handful of players that caught the long ball with great success. Oh, yes. With the speed deep threat receivers now on board to take the top off opposing defenses, this opens up the field for the potential top 2 PPR performance of Mr. Delaney Walker. Oh, yes, the Lord is smiling on Tennessee this season.
All right, thank you.
Oh, hold on, brother. Hold on. With Mr. Marcus Mariota, we shall hoist the fantasy trophy and say we've won at last. We've won at last. Thank God Almighty. We've won at last.
Mr. Mo, are you okay with having him as your number 1 quarterback, even though he might be, anywhere between 12 and 15 ranked quarterback by the beginning of the draft?
Well, we've got so many of these quarterbacks that have great potential. And I believe that Mr. Marcus Mariota, who showed flashes as just a rookie with multiple games scoring more than a touchdown. And yet I may remind you that we have not seen him do it with his legs yet. And Mr. Malarkey is going to ask him to do it with both his arm and his legs next season. He is a player you can draft towards the end and a player that you will start in and out. He can be a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
All right. Thank you, Candidate Mo. Candidate D-Rex, give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Well, I'll tell you what. The only long ball that Pyromaniac Mo is going to be catching on Election Day is going to be my left long ball. Now, here's what I'll tell you also. You having dreams? I'm having dreams too. You know what kind of dreams I'm having? They're wet ones. You know who was last night's? It was my wife, Melania. You want to know who was last week's wet dream? It was my other wife, Marla Maples. You want to know who was 2 weeks ago's wet dream? It was Ivana. I'm even such a dirtbag. 3 weeks ago, I had a wet dream about my own daughter. So how about that?
Okay, not sure how to respond, but let's move on to the next topic at hand. Candidate D-Rex, you had mentioned in your platform that when drafting, you need to take the best player available. This seems to be a very free-thinking, liberal, hippie-go-free-free type approach, and especially in a very important part of the entire season. You can't win at the draft, but you can lose. So what would you say to the American people about going into the draft without a plan? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really care what their plan is. If I'm elected, this is going to be a dictatorship. It's my plan. It's my plan or no plan, all right? So get me in this office, and I'm telling you, we got the plan. I'm going to tell you about it after I get elected. All those plans, but I got one, and it's called Noonbamacare. And the Noonbamacare plan, formerly known as the Universal Stag Party Care, is the only way you need to go into any draft. And it's just as simple as that. You go in, and you take the best player available, okay? I don't care what you think the best player is that's available. If it's a friggin' tight end and you're going with Gronk in the first pick or the third pick, okay. But if he's the best on your tiers and you got him as the best guy ranked in the first round, second round, the third round, whatever round, that's what you got to do. Everyone's sitting there thinking these days that you're going to do running back, running back, running back. Oh, that's yesteryear. Everyone's going to do wide receiver now. That's the big thing now. All this socialism and stuff. Everyone's jumping on board with the socialism. You know, my friend Sarah Palin, that was 5 weeks ago's wet dream. We were having some drinks the other day. Man, she's a frisky one. Wow, she just really is getting it going. Those Alaska girls, I thought there were no women in Alaska. There must be no men in Alaska, because whenever I'm hanging out and drinking with her, I'm keeping her hand at bay. I mean, I get it. Most girls do like this little thing I got down in my pants, but let's calm down there, honey. But what I need to do is I just need to let you know, go for the best player available. And then if that's a wide receiver, great. If that's a wide receiver running back, that's great. Whatever works for you is what you have to do. Don't go into any draft with a preset notion of what you should be doing. Because if you do that, you're going to be leaving a lot of talent on the table. And that's just what I'm going to be going with on new Obamacare. I know the people on the other side of the aisle are really hating on this, hating on all my theories and all my plans. But I'm going to tell you one thing. They're not going to be hoisting the trophy at the end of the season. The people that are going to be hoisting the trophy at the end of the season with a lot of work in season on draft day are going to be taking the best player available every single round. I don't care if that means that you got 3 tight ends by the 7th round. Trade them. Best player available wins championships. That is the platform I will be running on to be your next president of the Fantasy America.
When you say best player available, I've also heard you say that you can also wait for a quarterback way but down on the draft. Now, if, say, an Andrew Luck or a Cam Newton are available at the 2-3 turn and you have the 2-3, that's your best players on your tier sheet for Pyromaniac.com, what are you going to do then?
Well, if they were in my tier sheet, the best player, I take the best player available. And I do think I will be one of those people that will be taking a quarterback earlier than some of these others. I mean, malarkey. I'm going to have a quarterback. I'm not going to take one in the first, second, or third round, I hope. But if it's the best player available, I might. But I will be taking one of those guys higher than maybe others. But there's a lot of depth there. There's 15 people. It's like 15 countries we're going to invade once I'm elected. You got to bomb all 15 of them, but why not grab one of them and just own them? Just say, hey, we own your country now. Your women are ours.
Candidate Mo, you have a chance to respond.
Well, that sounds like a bunch of flip-flopping to me. American people, they want a candidate who knows what they're doing. May I remind you that this fine political office that we run for is not Survivor. It is not a reality version of government. It is a fantasy office that we are going for today and come November. Now, my candidate is not a man of substance. We did not hear one fact today. I'll take this man or I'll take that man. Well, I'm here to tell you my campaign is one of substance. My campaign is one that will get things done. I subscribe to the do the opposite theory. I will not be taking a running back early. I don't care his tier ranking. I will be going wide receiver and taking running backs later. That is my stance of which I'm running on, and that is the stance I believe in November.
All right. Thank you, candidate. Now, I'd like to go back to you to mention that you have taken a very strong stance against Ladarius Green. He just went to a very high-powered offense in Pittsburgh. They lost Martavis Bryant for the year. And Heath Miller, he's gone now. And in his heyday, especially with Big Ben and this prolific offense, he was a top 5 fantasy tight end. Can you explain to the people what you mean when you think that Ladarius Green is going to be a bust?
As we go forward together, taking measures necessary to heal our divided nation, we too must take measures to formulate a cohesive fantasy team. It is a new fantasy day in America. There is no bank that is too big to fail. There is no politician too powerful to jail. So in San Diego, they turned to Ladarius Green. You, sir, are not the tight end we shall play. You, sir, are not a player good enough to stay. Now, my opponent may tell you Mr. Green has been playing second fiddle to one of the league's best tight ends. Now, my opponent may ask you, how can a player get out of the best league, get out from under one of the best tight ends in the league? Well, that's what they're going to sing. But Antonio Gates had production, and he was actually used less. I found this of particular interest, and I think the American people will too. Green received more pass and play snaps than Antonio last year. Green received more snaps and pass blocking than Antonio last year. Yet Green finished as the 25th best tight end in PPR, and Gates, who was on the field less, did more and finished at the number 12 spot. Green's 25th place finish this past season, by the way, was his best finish in 4 long years. 4 long lackluster years. So last year was his best. Now, since Akostas Furberger arrived in 2008, his tight end has averaged 142 points. That's just 36 better than Ladarius Green. Let me be clear. Take the Big Ben's average tight end, and he would have finished only 13th last year at 142 points. This is a fantasy revolution where you can be one of the last to draft a tight end. If worse comes to worse, you can stream the position. But when you take a tight end in the later rounds, you want someone who's done it before, and Mr. Green has simply not done it before. Mr. Green will not do it in Pittsburgh.
Candidate D, do you have a response?
This is one of these subjects in this campaign that both me and Pyromaniac.com agree on. And I will tell you that Hilarious Green is one of those things that I'm just not buying into. But we are going to legalize it. I know people think that's crazy, but one of those things that I am going to do, we're legalizing Hilarious Green. I don't care. I don't care how many targets he gets. I don't care how many different dispensaries there are across this great nation of ours. We need to tax the shit out of that Hilarious Green. And we are going to be doing that if I'm the one to bring into the White House. And I want to say one thing, and I'm very, very happy to announce this because this is just I was going to wait on this, but I am announcing my vice president that is going to be doing this running and winning president. He is going to be in the Oval Office with me, and it is another guy that likes green. You know those Chiba Chews? Well, Chewy Chewbacca is going to be my running mate right here, and I love it. This little fella, he's going to take care of stuff. He's going to be eating shit in the Oval Office, and I'm going to tell you, this little guy is so good, and one of my favorite things about him is he's so small and cute, I can just put him in a little pocket right here. I can just put him in. It's like I'm a stinking kangaroo. I'm a kangaroo of USA-ness. This is the ticket. It's D-Rex with some new Obamacare and Chiba Chews, Chewy Chewbacca.
Okay.
You heard it here.
Mr. O.C. Kelly, if I could have one moment of contention of a point to bring up, sir.
Yeah, you can take 15 seconds, please.
I just want the folks to know that Mr. Ladarius Green has suffered not 1, not 2, but 3 concussions since 2014. Nary a season with more than 4 TDs, nary a season with 430 yards or more, nary a season with more than 37 receptions. He didn't get it done then, and he's not going to get it done tomorrow.
I'll have to fact check that, Candidate Mo, because he has been behind a Hall of Fame tight end for his entire career. So we'll leave that on the table for now. But
Hey, Megan Kelly, you sexy little beast over there. Can I ask
if
you a
you
question,
can do
please?
it within 15 seconds.
It's a simple question. What are facts?
There are things that are true. So, like, if you say something that's not true, that is not a fact.
Okay. Hey, candidate, Mr.
Yes.
PyromaniacMo, what are flip-flops? I mean, I'm wearing them. But what do you keep on bringing up this flip-flopping thing? What's going on?
American people, this is who you do not want in the fantasy office. Every 5 seconds, a non-fact, let us call it what it is, a lie, comes out of this man's mouth. Shameful.
Okay, let's get back on track here. Candidate D-Rex, I see you have you've been putting out some pretty vicious attack ads against candidate Mo over here, including stuff about Danny Woodhead and Zach Zinner, and how high he is on Brandon Marshall, and how pro marijuana, Alan Hearns he is in his rankings at Pyromaniac.com. So I would like you to tell Mr. Mo straight to his face what you mean by all of this, and if you can expand on this so that he has a chance to respond.
Well, I'll make it simple with some of these facts you're talking about. Danny Woodhead, great player, young, fine little fella. I think he's about the same size as Chewy here. Great player. I think he played in D33 or something, but he's done it. He's all right. Anybody that's friends with Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and cheats the shit out of it is a friend of mine. I don't know why they cut that fella. He is a good player. But Pyromaniac Mo, are we playing PPR right now? We're not talking PPR, because some of those tiers that you got going on, that's standard. But yeah, you got this guy. You got him sitting up at number 16 in the standard league. Come on. What are you thinking, man? What are you thinking? All right, that's what I got to say on that little Woodhead. Oh, man, hold on. I'm thinking about Melania Trump. My little Woodhead is getting going a little bit here. Hold on. All right, excuse me. Sorry. Got sidetracked here. Chewy, relax. This. I'm a professional. Okay, my next thing is Zach Zenner over Amir Abdullah. You're from Detroit. What? Are you thinking Amir Abdullah is some Muslim or something? Is that why you hate him? I mean, Muslims all hate us. We get it. We understand it. But just because his name is Amir Abdullah doesn't mean he's a Muslim. It just doesn't. Is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a Muslim? No, he's a basketball player. He's the #1 scoring basketball player of all time. So why do you have to be racist about all this stuff? I mean, come on, Pyromaniac Mo, this is not what's going to happen. I mean, he had a great season. Let's be honest. Zach Zenner, he's gonna have a nice one. They got rid of that Joik Bell guy. He's had too many injuries. Come on, we get it. They got rid of, what about that Riddick guy? You've been riding the Riddick knob for years. Now all of a sudden you're going to forget about Riddick and how good he is, and you're going to say Zach Zenner. I'm starting to think that you might be Bruce Jenner. Zach Zenner got nothing on Bruce Jenner. You're like Caitlyn over there. What the hell are you talking about that Zach Zenner is going to be above Abdullah? All right, my last thing is Brandon Marshall. You got him at number 7. Do you know what kind of locker room killer this man is? Do you know how many times he has stabbed and been stabbed by his wife, Michi Nogami? Do you know this stuff? This is the kind of person you want to put in your cabinet. You want that person on your platform. Marshall. I know that PK Ripper guy. He had a wet dream to Marshall and Fitzmagic a couple weeks ago, but this is not the way you want to be taking the American people. The American people need better than that. Forks do not kill people. Jared from Subway kills people.
Well, first of all, Zach Zenner in Detroit. He's a man between the tackles. Detroit shall be used in a running back by community next year, and doing so with success with the good CUDA. Making the calls, the good CUDA. Oh, yes, the good CUDA. Now, in the preseason, Zach Zenner led all backs with 183 rushing yards. He had 2 carries that went for over 20 and 1 that went for over 40, averaged 5.2. This is a man between the tackles, and he shall get it done in the red zone. Out of backs that totaled carrying the rock at least 30 times in the preseason, he was second only behind Mr. Thomas Rawls, who had a higher yards per carry of a 5.3. When you think of a Thomas Rawls, think of a Zach Zenner. Now I must digress over to my friend Danny Woodhead. You besmirched his name, sir. I worked with a John F. Kennedy, and let me tell you, you are no John F. Kennedy, sir. You are no Danny Woodhead, sir. Among running backs, Woodhead had the most receptions and the most receiving yards and the most touchdowns. Now, even in standard forms, he finished 12th at the position this past year. That's RB number 1. In 2013, he finished 19th in standard, 24th in 2012. He can certainly be an RB number 2, as he has been year in and year out in standard. Now he's got the good Coach Wisenhunt back in San Diego. Good Coach Wisenhunt was there just a few years ago, and under his guidance, under his tutelage, Mr. Danny Woodhead saw a career high in carries. I believe that Mr. Danny Woodhead will have the most touches of his career next year as he is reunited with a Mr. Wisenhunt. Yes, sir. Danny Woodhead, RB2 all day in standard. You better believe it.
Candidate D, would you like to do a quick response to that? Since I am fact-checking here, and Danny Woodhead did finish number 12th at the position with 163.1 fantasy points.
Yes, sir.
Instant.
The only thing I'm going to rebuttal with that one, and it's another one of my political friends, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, that guy really, he changed some stuff around. In some wonderful movie that I've seen, he said, "Rawls, get to the chopper."
Okay. Well, I'm sure the American people will take that to heart. Now, Candidate Mo, I know you've also expressed your, I would say, pretty harsh opinions on candidate D-Rex's approach for Kirk Cousins and Tony Romo. I think they're both in his top 8 this year, when many have them, after 8, even as a quarterback too. What say you?
Yes, I challenge my candidate's perceptions of Mr. Romo. Mr. Romo's ranking is pure corporate inflation. Jerry Jones represents all that is wrong with America. Jerry Jones is the face of greed, and Romo is his puppet. Such blatant Romo love will not work to mend the wounds of this country, but rather severely separate our good nation even further, pitting man against man, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. There are plenty of Tony Romos out there to be drafted. Romo has not seen a 4,000-yard season since 2012, has not finished better than 10th at the position since 2011. He has not been inside the top 5 since in 2007. His weapons are too old and are too few. America is mistrustful of a man like this, tired of the Washington establishment and tired of an old and broken down Tony Romo's a quarterback from a bygone age. Can you respond to Mr. Romo, sir, before I get to Mr. Cousins?
Well, yes, I'm an investor in extends. I'm obviously, you know it well. You need them. You use them. It's the only way you've kept your marriage alive for years. My friend, Jimmy Johnson, is an extends. He's the pitch guy on there. He's a salesman for it. And I was hanging out one time on the southern streets of West Palm Beach with Michael Irvin, with Warren Sapp, with Charles Barkley, and with Jimmy Johnson. And we were waiting for a cab. And what we're doing is really called the Hook Scout. And by God, we all got arrested. But I'll tell you, hold on, I digress. Jimmy Johnson told me that Tony Romo has got some wonderful clavicles. I don't care what anybody says those clavicles are unbelievable. And what I heard is they're actually putting plutonium in the clavicles. And you know what they use plutonium for? Weapons of mass destruction. You know what you do with weapons of mass destruction? You throw bombs. You know who you're throwing bombs to? Des Bryant. You know what I am? A desbian. All right, now that's it. Now, Jerry Jones, Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Johns, I don't know. They all kill elephants. They all shoot stuff and take glory pictures with it. They go to taxidermists. They go and they get their Botoxy. They get their surgery. Now, Jerry Jones, you look better when you were.
Candidate Mo, would you like to expand on your Kirk Cousins?
Kirk Cousins, he is a flash in the pan, sir. He lacks substance and is not the leader that will build a better tomorrow. He's not the fantasy quarterback that will bring you to the promised land of fantasy playoffs. His fantasy production will not lead us down the road to fantasy America that I want to live in. Mr. Cousins had 8 games last year in which he scored over 20 fantasy points. But let's look a little closer. In those 8 games, 6 of his opponent defenses ranked in the bottom 10. In other words, 6 of those 8 times in which he had a big game, it came against the 10 easiest opposing defenses for quarterbacks to play. In fact, 4 of those games came against the 3 worst defenses in the league. And I'm talking about a Philly twice. I'm talking about a New Orleans and, of course, the New York Giants with that schedule, who could not have put up such impressive numbers. As teams gather more tape on this young quarterback, it will be tougher and tougher to keep up such a display. He suffers from a severe home-road split. Although he has played 2 less games on the road, he's tossed 10 more interceptions. And his quarterback rating dips from 101 to 83. He is not what we saw this year, and he shall fall from prominence next year.
Vice President candidate Chewbacca, would you like to respond to this as well?
In all honesty, I'm just going to let you guys know. I did not bring the translator for Chewbacca. You're just not going to understand it. It's not going to help me out at all. So why would you ask that question? We never talked about this. Han Solo's too busy doing some other shit. He's the only one that knows how to understand this mofo. We just drink beers together. What up? What up? All right. So there's an old saying in Tennessee. I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me, you won't get fooled again. Wait, I think that was actually the Who. That was the Who. That was Roger Daltrey that said it. Hold on. I'm not friends with Roger Daltrey. That hippie, that guy, Bob O'Reilly, him and that Townsend guy. Again, I'm sorry. I digress. Now, you know what I'm saying, right? We're talking about D.C., Redskins, right? Now, is that Washington D.C. or is that Washington State? Where do the Redskins play? Are they like that 13th man team in the Northwest?
If you are elected,
Columbia. I thought Columbia was in. Columbia was in South America. District of Columbia. Where the hell are we these days? Let's just come on. We need to build the wall.
Candidate Mo.
Just another example of the divisiveness that shall bring this great fantasy country down. Just another example of the demagoguery that is going to drive this great nation to its knees. If you vote for me, I will bring you to the promised land of great getting over into the fantasy championship.
4 years ago, do you remember this, PyromaniacMo? I brought you to your knees 4 years ago. You want to know why? You backed my candidacy. I said, I bet you I could have brought you to my knees. And you were like, I'll do it, D. I'll do it. Just all I need is some of those D-Rex steaks on that D-Rex Airlines on that. And I need to take some classes because I'm not that smart at your D-Rex University.
All right, both candidates. This is getting pretty heated. So let's go straight into the hot zone, hot seat questions. Pyromaniac Mo, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right.
Oh, of course.
Let's see. You currently have Todd Gurley and David Johnson as your first and second ranked running backs. The other candidates are not as brazen on these second-year players. Gurley is on a weak offense and currently in the middle of a relocation. And last season, David Johnson had only 125 rushing attempts and 3 games of 15 or more carries. Not to mention that the Cards re-sign CJ2K, and still have that bumbling guy, Andre Ellington, lurking around. So considering how early you'll have to take, the top 2 running backs if we go with your tiers, don't you think it's way too early for these inexperienced players? Have we not learned from Alfred Morris in 2012 when his GDP decreased by 75 fantasy football points after many had drafted him in the first or second round? So what say you to the American people who see this as a threat to disarm their basic right to own a proven stud like an Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, or Le'Veon Bell?
I understand the American people want to mitigate risk, especially early in the draft. But let us look a little closer at these running backs you mentioned, Mr. Bell and Mr. Charles. There too lies risk. Le'Veon Bell, the man just started jogging. He suffered his injury November 1st. Now, when elected, I will have a diverse cabinet. I will hear from all sides, from all angles. I recently did a fantasy football talk with a Mr. Will Carroll, who's the managing editor for FanDuel. Now, Will Carroll discussed many a player, many a running back, but he had the most hesitation for Mr. Bell and questioned whether he would be ready to work in week 1. Now I continue with the Mr. Charles. Now they say he might be ready for week 1, but it is a long road to recovery. Let us not forget that this is the second time that Mr. Charles has torn an ACL. So I ask you, sir, which risk are we talking about here? We know the brutality of the position. One could certainly say it is risky to draft any running back so early, but my campaign is about a fantasy revolution. My campaign is about winning fantasy championships, not coming in second or third. We need not be afraid of risk, and we need to look to the youth. Mr. Gurley has passed the eye test with flying colors. I want to grab a guy on the way up and not hold on to a long-two man on the way down, despite being only the only NFL team not to average 300 yards per game. St. Louis, now Los Angeles Rams. Mr. Gurley still finished 5th in standard. They will not get any worse. And let us not forget, he did not play his first 2 games and only had 3 rushing attempts in number 3. Now, Mr. Gurley had 3 finishes as the number 1 or number 2 running back in standard. Mr. Gurley was able to score a touchdown or 100 yards in 83% of the games he started. Now, this offense cannot be any worse than it was last year. It is a Jeff Fisher offense. Now, I know this excites the dads out there, and I don't want to marginalize any of my voters, but let's face it, Mr. Fisher is not a great coach except for the running back position, and he can add greatness to Mr. Gurley. Now, while my opponent is running attack ads, I am here not to tell you how terrible America is, but how great America can be. While the Rams were on one end of the spectrum, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got the Arizona Cardinals. They averaged 408 yards of offense. David Johnson was a huge part of that in both the rushing and the passing game. I look at backs that had at least 100 carries. No one else had a higher points per opportunity than a Mr. David Johnson. It's 71% of his starts. The man totaled 100 yards or a touchdown. Now I ask you, what kind of a nation are we when we give tax breaks to the billionaires, but we can't take care of the elderly and the children? What kind of a fantasy owner will you be if you repeated draft last year's greatest instead of tomorrow's talent? David Johnson and Mr. Gurley are indeed tomorrow's talent.
Candidate D, would you like to respond on Candidate Mo's fantasy revolution?
I will say this. It's a simple fact. This is just a simple fact. And I hear you. That guy, his rhetoric is unbelievable. I mean, he just has that. He's able to spin these words around. He's got these big words. He's got the best words. But I personally was on the USS Abraham Lincoln the day, May 1st, 2003, that my hero, George W. Bush, announced mission accomplished. Hell, this hat is from the mission accomplished day. I got this on the USS Abraham. You want to know how I got it? It wasn't all that money I got. It wasn't that. I got enough to buy enough of these hats. I'll buy the original frig. I'll buy that Air Force carrier or whatever the hell they drop these things with. I got them. You want to know how I got this hat? I went to him. I go, W, we're going to be drinking some beers together tonight. I know you won this candidacy because you're the guy that people like drinking beers with. You know, that's what everyone said in those polls. Well, guess what? I'm the guy they like drinking beers with in this election. But back to this hat. Here's how I got it. I told him, I need to sleep with your mom, Barbara. I'll give you $1,000,000 if I can just sleep with your mom, Barbara. We'll pretend like it's not. We'll pretend like I gave you $1,000,000 for the hat, and I'll put it up in an election, you know, like in the Smithsonian or whatever that thing is. But the guy said, "Sure, Barbara hasn't gotten a good one from my dad in a long time. Give it to him." And I go, "What up? I'm giving my thunder stub to your mom. Here's the hat to show for it."
Now, Candidate D, we have some viewers that are getting a little chippy on the side because you're not really answering the question. So would you like to respond to Candidate Mo's viewpoints on David Johnson and Todd Gurley?
Well, as I said earlier, my friend Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's a Gurley man. I like a Gurley. I like Gurleys of all sorts. Hey, I don't know. I haven't seen her yet.
Okay. Candidate Mo, would you like to have 15 seconds to respond to that one?
Well, I think in fantasy, you want to grab a man on the rise. Arizona has the offense that can get it done. Scoring the touchdowns and a rushing and a receiving. And Mr. David Johnson can do both in this high-powered offense. And in the Rams of the Los Angeles, under Fisher, Mr. Gurley can get it done under Fisher because he is the best running back coach he has ever had at the pro level.
I got a question for you. I'm not going to talk about my hats or my sexual prowess here. I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm sorry, everyone. I know we're here trying to have a debate filled with these. What were those things called again?
Facts.
Flip-flops? Oh, yeah. What are your thoughts? I heard something this week like CJ2K. Remember that guy? I heard a CJ2K is back in the mix. David Johnson. What is going to happen with David Johnson with the CJ2K? And the last guy in my tiers at running back right now is Andre Ellington, who 2 years ago was like a first or second rounder. What do you just think? You think all of a sudden David Johnson's going to be getting this and that and get all these carries? I mean, you're the one who came up with it. You coined it. You coined a lot of things, but you coined it by community. Oh, by community. Your boy has a community. The kind of community that I'm trying to get the hell out of our country, and that's the Mexican community.
A community is how the NFL is a-turning these days. Show me a team besides perhaps the Vikings of Minnesota that relies on only one. And even then, you've got a Mr. Asiata coming up and catching some passes. So everybody is getting it done by community. And Mr. David Johnson showed us last year with just 125 attempts, I believe. He was a top 10 running back in fantasy, and he didn't get his chance till the end. I like Mr. Chris Johnson to take some of the heat off of Mr. David Johnson. He is not the back that's going to get it 25 carries, but he can get it done. No other running back had more points per opportunity than Mr. David Johnson. He can get it done with less, and we've all seen the potential that this young man has catching the ball and running the ball.
All right. Well, candidates, that was a great opening hot seat question. Candidate D, I have one for you as well. So you currently have Aaron Rodgers as your number 10 quarterback, where everyone else seems to have him in the top 5, myself included, Candidate Mo as well. Now, Rodgers was without 2014's second best fan receiver, Jordy Nelson, And he had Chris Christie, another fat ass named Eddie Lacy, hindering the Packers offense. And yet he was still 7th best fantasy quarterback this year. So he finished as a top 2 quarterback in 3 of the last 4 seasons. And even though his 2013 campaign was cut short, I think he played about 9 games by injury, he was still the number 4 quarterback that year in fantasy points per game. He has weapons of mass destruction like a Jordy Nelson, a Randall Cobb, a slimmer, albeit, Eddie Lacy, and that rivals any offense today in the NFL. They also have a huge collection of depth like Jeff Janis, who we all saw in the NFC wildcard game or the divisional game. Catch, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, something like that. And we cannot forget the injured Ty Montgomery and Richard Rodgers, who also caught one of the most famous Hail Marys of this season. And, of course, everyone's favorite Devontae Adams. Even though he sucks, he's still there. Now, the question is, he's an amazing passer and he can run. And some feel that you're just very low on him because he's shipping your girl. So what do you say to the American people?
I told you guys that this whole topic is off limits on this debate. I'm not doing another one of these debates. I'm out. I just told you this hurts. But Olivia Munn, God bless her soul. I'm not going to go see that new X-Men film. They're painting on the stuff on her, but let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Yes. Let's talk about some fantasy football. Like I said earlier, I got a lot of friends. I got friends that are friends, and they're high-power people, and they got friends and friends. And the last one, I was going out, and I was hunting with Dick Cheney. So we were hunting for some extinct animal. I just felt like, it was a good time to go get some I just needed some ivory. My wife was pissed at me because I just wasn't treating her right. And I went and I needed some ivory. So me and Dick Cheney went hunting for elephants, and he grazed me with one of those shotgun shots. Dick Cheney, he's always fooling around. Whenever we're hunting, he's always shooting somebody that he's hunting with, and he thinks it's funny. It's kind of scary, but hey, to each his own. I do some scary stuff too. But Rodgers, he's moving up. You can call me a flip-flopper. You can call me anything you want to. I think I'm wearing flip-flops right now, so why would I not be a flip-flopper? The guy's talented. The guy's got a great coach. He's got a great rapport with his coach. He's got great weapons. That white lightning guy, Jordy, holy crap. What a whitey that guy is. And you know me, I like my whiteys. I just want nothing but whiteys in here. That's why I'm building walls. I'm getting everyone out of the mix. But at the end of the day, why did he finish 7th last year? Why? Why does he only finish top 3 2 years ago? And a couple times before that? That's what I got for you. Now, right now, I think they realize as a team, defense ain't good like it was back when they were winning championships back in 11 or 12 or whatever year that was, back when Obama got reelected. I don't know how they didn't rig those election machines. I paid seriously $500 million to Diebold to make sure those election machines, it's Chads. I don't know what's going on. But here's one thing I do know. I make a lot of money off that defense and human growth hormone. That's one of my investments, is human growth hormone drugs. And that defense on the Packers, they have it. But we found weapons of mass destruction, BLTs, bacon, lettuce, and tomato. I'm going to Lambeau. We're getting those cheeseheads. I say we bomb them too. They're drinking all our Milwaukee's best.
You see firsthand right here how much of a waffler Candidate D can be. Do you have a chance to respond on him and his ranking for an Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, yes, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Oh, yes. Now, in America today, we spend too much of our time looking to tear down one another instead of build one another up. Instead of the petty jealousies that affect my opponent's view of the man, let us be clear. who the real enemy is, whom we should really choose to wage the war against, and it is not Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Let us wage a moral and political war against the billionaires and the corporate leaders on Wall Street and elsewhere, whose policies are greed and they are aimed at destroying the middle class. That's where we should turn our attention and not breaking down to Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Now, my opponent plays on your fears, but I am here to play on the fantasy statistics. Mr. Rodgers was a quarterback 11 different times in 2014, 11 different weeks. 2015, he had as many top 12 quarterback finishes as did a Mr. Carson Palmer. Both men finished with 7. Now, as we all know, Green Bay's weapons were nowhere near those found out in the desert where Mr. Palmer resides. Aaron Rodgers got it done with less. In 2016, Mr. Jordan Nelson shall return the prodigal son. A top 5 wide receiver shall return with a full bill of health. The offensive line, which was a top 10 in 2013 and a 14, was the bottom 10 last year. They too will become healthy and shore up many positions. All of these signs of positive movement, of positive fantasy value points to the season that Mr. Aaron Rodgers shall have. He's getting it done with less, and he's going to do it again tomorrow.
And now I believe it was Governor Dogmatica that said that Aaron Rodgers was also trending down. Do you have anything to respond to him?
I think now that the good coach McCarthy is calling the plays once again, and I believe that now that Mr. Eddie Lacy is on the road to a health and a recovery, the defenses will once again have to worry about him freeing up a Mr. Aaron Rodgers, who, let us not forget, can also get it done with his legs. Now, I understand people like a Mr. Dogmatica want to get down on Aaron Rodgers after having so bad a season. But one season does not a fantasy career make, and Mr. Aaron Rodgers has done it in and year out. And if this offensive line returns to greatness, then so too shall Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
All right. Well, I think we have a great collection of information here, and I see that Vice President candidate Chewbacca there is getting a little drunk. So we'll just go into the final spin zone. I'll start with you, candidate Mo, since you're already on a roll. If you'd like to give the American people some last-minute tidbits for this debate so that they can think about how your platform best supports their views on fantasy football, and then we'll send it right to candidate D.
Well, I was thinking of the greatness there of what America could be, so I might have lapsed and missed some of your question, but I shall do my best to respond.
Well, I've gone to more of your spin zone type comments that you've made previously.
Well, sir, I believe that a Mr. Delaney Walker could easily be a top 3 PPR tight end this year. As I said, I believe in one Mr. Marcus Mariota that shall bring us to the promised land. Mr. Delaney Walker, in a game-per-game basis, fared better than a Mr. Gronkowski this year. Mr. Delaney Walker surprised many of folk out there. Now, I believe with the weapons in Tennessee that Mr. Delaney Walker is going to be a fantasy day value. He is constantly underrated, and yet he is constantly given the attention by their quarterback. Few teams revolve around the tight end position as much as the Tennessee Titans do. I also am running a campaign that believes that Eddie Lacy will have a bounce back season. As I said before, his offensive line really was more to do than any weight problems with his deficiency this year. He averaged the same amount of yards per carry, 4.1, as he did in his rookie season. He averaged a 4.5 in 2014. I believe he's going to rebound as his offensive line too shall rebound. And now that the good Coach McCarthy is calling the plays, Mr. Lacey can get it done. Mr. Lacey, even though he had this title of being overweight, had 11 carries that went for over 15 yards. That is the same amount as one Mr. Lamar Miller. I'm also running on a campaign that believes in the Arizona Cardinals. As I said, the weapons there are great. They've got the receivers. They've got the running backs, and at the helm, they've got a Mr. Carson Palmer. I believe I'm highest on the Mr. Carson Palmer from all of my Pyromaniac candidates, and I believe that Mr. Carson Palmer, running a Bruce Arians offense that led the league in yards per game, that was top 5 in points per game. And this Bruce Arians offense, with all of these weapons, shall guide Carson Palmer to yet another top 5 quarterback finish in the 2016 season. And I ask you today to join me tomorrow bring forth the greatness of the Fantasy Football League, and that is the Pyromaniac Promise. Join me today, and we shall achieve glory tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you very much, candidate Mozambique. Candidate D, I'd like to give you an opportunity for your last-minute comments on your spin.
You got it. Now, here is what I'm telling you. It's as simple as this. What I say is your Mariota is not going to be throwing. He will not be throwing to your tight end that you talk about. You want to know who's going to be throwing to? Dorial Green Beckham. Sounds English or something. But he's going to be throwing to him. Not, who's the guy you said again? The guy that only catches touchdowns when it bounces off 3 helmets and a bunch of hands. That's the guy that you're going to go on. I know he had 92 catches. I know he had a great season. But this is a guy that just ain't going to get it done. I'm running my platform for the American people, or at least the racist version of the American people, that I'm going with Dorial Green Beckham. He might have dragged his girlfriend down the stairs and beat her up in college, and it cost him a lot of money, a lot of millions. He could have been a top 5 pick when he came out last year, but he was a rookie, and he actually had an all right season. I got some stats for you. I don't know campaign of mine, but I'm going for it right now. And Dorial Beckham last year only had 580 offensive snaps. Do you know how many snaps that is out of all the Titans snaps that they had? Well, that's only 55.90%. Now, this guy is going to be a lot more used this year. Now, on those 580 snaps, he actually had an all right season. He had 67 targets, 32 catches. He had 549 yards and 4 TDs. Everyone's all gaga about this other rookie, Amari Cooper. Guess what he did? He had 85.20% of his snaps. And then what'd he do? He had 72 catches, 170 yards, and 6 TDs. Only 2 TDs more on a lot more targets. Now, I'm thinking this year, the guy is Dorial Green Beckham. He seems to get it. They've got a lot of weapons. They've got DeMarco Murray, that guy that Mo was talking about earlier, stumping on one of my friends in campaigns. He hasn't liked him forever, and now that he's traded over to Nashville, now all of a sudden he's on that jock. Come on. You're a flip-flopper as well. You got like those no-see-ums they got down on the beach crawling all over you and giving you a rash. Well, guess what? That rash is going to cost you the campaign. Now, I'm going Dorial Green Beckham. The snap counts will go up to about 85%. I don't think it's going to be that tight end. I don't think it's going to be all about him. And Dorial Green Beckham for Shizzo, my Nizzo. I'm trying to get some of the vote. I'm trying to get some of that Southern California vote. He's going to be the man. I don't care what you say. Now, should I go and should I give another guy? You got a question for me?
Mr. Kelly, if I could rebut the Dorial Green Beckham and the Delaney Walker, I would just like to say my campaign is built on a foundation of statistical information and not the demagoguery that my opponent is slinging today. I would just like to tell the American people that Pro Football Focus rated Delaney Walker as the 5th best tight end in the ranking system. I would like to tell the American people that only 3 teams looked to the tight end more in the red zone than the Titans of Tennessee last year. I would like to tell the American people that no other team passed more to the tight end position. In fact, 41% of all Titan Christians came by the tight end position. 41% of all receptions. The second most behind them was the Panthers at 31%. Nearly 50% of all receptions was made by the tight end position in Tennessee, and Delaney Walker is indeed that player that shall rise with Mr. Marcus Mariota to the fantasy promised land.
Candidate D-Rex, would you like to continue your spin on a T.Y. Hilton or an Arian Foster?
I would. You know what I'll say about T.Y. Hilton? He didn't have any luck last year. How can you have a good season if you don't have any luck? Still had 1,000 yards. He had a 1,000-yard season with the oldest player in the league, the guy whose brother's wife is that Hasselbeck woman, the crazy woman on The View. She's always spewing all these kind of thoughts that I agree with. I agree with everything she says. That chick's a genius. She's off the show because I don't think Whoopi, I don't think Oprah, I don't think any of these girls like her anymore. They kicked her out. She got kicked off of Fox News, for Christ's sake. The only person that's gotten kicked off Fox News is me. And by the way, OC, I mean Megyn Kelly, you sure look handsome today. Not that that's my kind of thing, but Chewy, hold on, earmuffs, Chewy
Well,
kind of likes
I
it.
appreciate that, and we'll table that conversation for next time.
Okay, well, let me get to T.Y. Hilton then. This is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to call it right now. You heard it here first. He's going to do a lot more. One, he's going to have his first 10 touchdown season. That's happening. They got rid of that Kobe Fleener, Kobe Bryant, Kobe, I don't know, that knuckle. He's a crazy looking man. I should like him, but I don't. He's a weirdo. He's not down with Breeze. He's down there. Fair enough. Throw them all down there. But we've got a T.Y. Hilton. He had a hard time becoming a one receiver last year. Excuse me. But I'm going to tell you right now, they got rid of Andre Johnson. Allen's a good player, but whatever. Moncrief is going to have a better season, but we've talked about him on the Pyromaniac podcast, heavy. Where's this ball going? Where is it going? It's not going to Frank Gore. But, I'm going to tell you about another dream I had. This one wasn't wet, but a dream I had the other day. It was that Arian Foster signed with the Indianapolis Colts. It's happening, people. It's going to happen. Arian Foster's going to be on the Colts and play those 5 or 6 games. And T.Y. Hilton's going to have 85 catches, 1,400 yards, which is what basically he had 2 years ago. And he's going to have 10 TDs this year. I'm telling you right now, that's what's going to happen. He's got a bad strength of schedule. He's got 27th for the wide receiver position, which is a bummer. But this is what's happening, people.
Candidate PyromaniacMo, do you have a response?
Well, I like what's happening down in with the Colts of Indianapolis. And I too believe, like my fellow candidate said, that T.Y. Hilton shall have a bounce-back season, and I believe there will be some recency bias so that Mr. T.Y. Hilton will be a draft day value. And with the rise of Dante Moncrief and I think of Philip Dorsett taking large steps forward, defenses will have to spread out and worry about the weapons of receivers that are available to Mr. Luck, who too shall have a bounce-back season.
All right, well, I think we're getting down to the final parts of this debate. Candidate D-Rex, would you like to lend the American people your final thoughts?
I will. I'm going to talk about one other candidate I'm going to bring into my cabinet, and that's going to be the U.S. General. He's going to be the guy that helps everyone out with their health, not this Planned Parenthood stuff. We're going to ramp it up. I think we all need it. But I'm going to tell you about one more person that I'm a big fan of, and a person that I do not want you to forget about. I like the team. I like that team up in the Pacific Northwest from Washington, D.C. I love that team, the Washington Redskins. And I'm one of the few that's around that does think they should change the name of that team. I think it's blasphemous what they're calling that team. But I'm all in on Matt Jones. I'm all in on Mr. Matt Jones. I'm going downtown to the underground with Matt Jones. This is a big beast of a man. Scott McLaughlin, a guy I respect. I drank beers with him all the time. This is a guy, when he was with the 49ers, the GM, he said, come over, D-Rex, let's drink some brews. Let's figure out this draft board of ours. Let's get hooked up. I'll pass out on the couch. They'll fire me. It doesn't matter. Just have a spot for me in the cabinet. Well, the Washington Redskins took him as GM, and he's a smart guy. Who did he go after in last year's draft? Who did he go after? He went after Matt Jones. The guy is a beast. He's 6'2". He's 231. This guy can catch the ball. He is Scott McLaughlin's next beast mode. Now, you talked earlier about that fella Morris, the guy that drives all those fancy Bentleys and all that stuff. He's out of town. He's not there anymore. It's always showboating that guy. They didn't like that. That wasn't the kind of regime they're looking for over there. So who's going to get the work? Who's going to get the work there? It's Matt Jones. Now, it's not the Matt Jones that I used to do cocaine with, that white quarterback from Arkansas. That's a different Matt Jones. This guy likes a different kind of white powder. It's like protein powder. He's a workout guy. He's not a cocaine guy. So I'm all about him for sure. You got a big boy. He needs to figure out and help his fumbling issues. But this is a 3-down back in the same way that I'm going to be a 3-term president, because when I'm a president, I'm going to make sure I'm going to veto the crap out of everything until we change it so that I can be a 3rd-termer.
Candidate Mo, would you like to lend your final thoughts about this debate?
Well, just a couple of players that we have not discussed. One, I think the end of the running days in Seattle might be upon us. I love a Mr. Thomas Rawls, but that offensive line, which we saw take a step backwards last year as they sent the center down to New Orleans, is continuing to lose players left and right. That offensive line is a worry. And as much as I like the talent as a Mr. Thomas Rawls, I fear that offensive line may indeed make the Seattle Seahawks turn to the passing game once again. And by that token, I like the wide receivers from Seattle, certainly Mr. Baldwin, but Mr. Lockett and Mr. Curse, who do not get enough attention from the American public. I believe one of those two, Mr. Lockett or Mr. Curse, and I believe I'm highest on Curse, certainly, and maybe on Lockett as well. I believe one of these two wide receivers shall take a large step forward. I believe that these wide receivers can take the top off the defense, as all three have a catch percent of 69.9% or above, and all three have an average depth of target beyond 10 yards. This offense can get it done vertically, and I think they shall next year. Finally, I would just like to say, I am certainly risk-averse at the beginning of the draft. I will be looking to take wide receivers left and right and go for my home run swings on the running back later. I am a late-round quarterback drafter, and if worse comes to worse, I can take a streaming approach. And that is the recipe for success in tomorrow's Fantasy America.
All right, thank you very much, Candidate Mo. We are coming to the end of this debate. And before we sign off, we'll just let the people know that we will have a poll on Twitter and Facebook about who will win this debate. You can vote in once we get that up. But candidates, I would like one last 15-second blurb or so before we have to cut to the next show. About why you think the people would like to vote for you.
Well, I'm going to tell you again. I'm the best candidate to have a beer with, and I'm going to keep it open. If you write me a letter while I'm sitting there in the Oval Office, and I'll have my morning coffee, probably with little Bushmills in it. Oh, actually, hold on, that's Irish too. I got to have it so it's American. So it's going to be some Woodford Reserve. I'm going to be drinking that, and I'm going to be reading these letters, these fan letters, and I love that stuff, and I'm going to invite you to come drink with me. Who cares about all this other litmus stuff and all this? I got my panel. I'll tell you about them after I get elected. They'll take care of all the big stuff. The last thing I'll say, you and your Mariota love. Your Mariota love, he's from the 50th state. And if I'm elected, Hawaii, they're out. We're going back to 49. The only one that we're going to possibly invite back in is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was maybe going to be the 51st state. Screw it. Let's get Hawaii back out there. That's not American. That's like, have you ever taken a flight out to Hawaii? It's like taking a flight out to the South Pacific. What is this? I'm getting it out. So Mariota, I want to see his documentation. I want to see his papers. I don't think he's got the birth certificate to be playing in the NFL at that position. And I'm going to ask you. I want to see yours too. Mr. Mo, I want to see your papers. I don't think you have it. I don't think you can be a president. I think it just does. I want to see this. I'm going on. This guy wasn't born in this country. He barely lives in this country. He lives out in the sticks. This is like, I don't know, man. This is like, I want to see this stuff. Pyromaniac Mo, show me your birth.
Candidate Mo, your chance to respond and your final comments to the American people.
In this great country of ours, no man should be forced to show his legal documentation. In this great country of ours, it should be enough that we are proud to vote for America, and we are proud to wear the stars and stripes above our hearts. Now, I started off this debate talking about a dream of a new tomorrow. A dream where we will take the wide receivers over the running backs. A dream of a tomorrow in which we can take a quarterback in the 11th round and still ride to glory. That is the dream of which I'm building this campaign. And with the players that I identify like a Mr. Marcus Mariota, we shall hoist a trophy. And with players like a Mr. Gurley and a Mr. David Johnson early in the polls in the draft position, we can rise and raise our trophy for a fantasy tomorrow. And I say again to you, in this fantasy world, if you follow me with my picks and my suggestions, we will holler out together. We've won at last. We've won at last. Thank God Almighty. We've won fantasy at last.
All right. Well, thank you very much, candidates. Candidate D-Rex and Candidate Mo. This has been very eye-opening for the American people. I hope every listener at home will go out to the polls and vote. This is OC signing off. Thank you very much. Have a great night.